This is my hat. I have a black one, but it got lost on fire. Gotta find a new one to replace it. And you gotta see my medallion.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn this down.
This is working. So that in.
Check.
And I will turn this guy on.
So which camera is actually? I
So
don't
this is
like
this
my
is
side
you.
angle, so I hope.
So you're straight on with this one.
Okay.
But if you're just talking to me, it's kind of close.
Close
So,
enough. And what's that one for? Lighting?
well, this one's for me. But even though
I see. You're right.
yeah, so it's but even though like this document, like if I'm doing just a podcast where it's an interview,
Yeah.
then Caden will take it and he'll just swap out when I'm talking. He shows me, and when the other person's talking.
Okay.
But in most of this one, because it really ends up being a documentary style
Yeah.
episode. Like I'm not really a character.
Right.
Right. Everyone that I interview is a character, and so it ends up just being all this camera. Right.
Okay.
And then because of this one, it's just we've got such a wealth of photos. Like I'm imagining that I'm gonna like as you're talking about something at Burning Man or something at the pre-build that will be.
You just fill them in.
Well, there'll be footage that I can if I I mean I haven't talked to Rand, but
Not
Renzo.
much of me or not much of Garth. I have a lot of the pictures from Garth that I took of him in pre-build, but there really isn't. The two of us didn't make those. The build really, he has so many pictures of the build, but we noticed that lately. We were talking about it. It's like, gosh, there's no pictures of us. It'd be kind of nice. But whatever, it's okay. We have pictures in life. The other thing is I have this little thing where, I catch my breath and I don't want to come off feeling, I don't have like a lung disease or anything, but
Right.
just delete those out.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, good morning, California, or good afternoon, California. Good
Yay.
afternoon, America. This is Justin at Seeking Context, speaking with Lisa Marie, Memphis Anderson,
That's right.
about Burning Man and about the temple, about your life. And I wanted to start out by asking if you could just retell the story you told me 10 minutes ago about the history of the name Memphis.
Oh, the history, great, absolutely. I was singing in a rock and roll band. I had previously been singing in a little jazz quartet combo, and it's a small band, 7 or 8 people in the Napa Valley, and I'd been around for a while. We all lived here, locals. It was a hobby type band, and eventually, you didn't turn that off. We have a friend who was a Presbyterian pastor, and he was at one of our digs. It was somebody's wedding party, or maybe it was the chili ball or something, and he's like, Lisa Marie, you need a stage name. It's just, you need a stage name. And Lisa Marie is, just like you've always been Elvis's daughter in some way, and Elvis just wouldn't be the right name for you. He goes, how about Memphis? And I said, well, that sounds good. I need a one-word name. And sure enough, it stuck. So it's been about 15 years that I've been in Memphis, and it's a well-known name out in community. And there are certain parts of the world, especially the Burning Man community and my local, that's kind of all they know me by. No one really knows I'm Lisa Marie. It's kind of funny. That's
Right.
okay.
Yeah, I kind of only recently learned it. I noticed on your email signature, I guess.
That's the thing is, right, I did have a Memphis email for a while, and then there were other people. It's like, who's Memphis? And then my phone says Memphis, and my Zoom is Lisa Marie, and it's confusing, so that's
Right.
okay. It's mostly Memphis. Out in the world, it's Memphis.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I just interviewed earlier your partner, Garth.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you can tell me about Garth.
Tell you about Garth?
Yeah, just give me some,
Yeah.
how did you and Garth...
We met 30 years ago, probably now. I was dating one of his best friends from childhood because he was raised here in St. Helena, but left at 18 and never came back until he came back to live with me. And he was getting married, and the 4 of us hung out a lot together those 8 years that I was with his friend. And during that time, he and I became like the best friends of the group. And so we just hang out and we cooked together, and he told me stories. He was a great storyteller, and since I sang, he'd sit on the piano and we'd have a glass of wine while his wife was doing something and my boyfriend would be working or whatever, and he'd play the piano and I'd sing and we'd drink our wine, and then we'd sit on the couch and he and I cooked. So we'd cook Thai food or cook whatever we'd cook for that evening, and and tell stories. And we just had this fantastic friendship. I was in his wedding, he was in my wedding. Then we didn't see each other for a while, kids and life, and sort of a decade passed, and I hosted a memorial service for a friend of his here in town, and he showed up and he was like, "Where have you been?" And so he texted me his number, and literally on the car ride away, and I was in the middle of separating from my relationship, and he had already been separated for several years, and so he just said, "I need to see you. We need to reconnect." It's like this big friendship gap has been in my life, and I've been kind of ghosting him, and not because I didn't like him, it's just because too much was going on, and I wanted him to see the best in me at that time when I saw him again, not like all my drama and trauma that goes along with relationships and breakup and divorce. And there he was, just perfect timing for each other, and we've been together ever since that moment. He drove out of the parking lot from that memorial service I hosted for our friend. He didn't know we had mutual friendships, and it was one of his childhood high school friends, and here it was 30 years later or whatever, so. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, and we've been together ever since. We have a fantastic relationship.
Yeah.
It's very loving, very compassionate. We're very much alike. Even our hands look alike. Yeah, you don't have to be in a successful relationship and be alike, but it just so happens we're very complementary by having like-minded. It's really easy to be together. And it's like having yourself in the room.
Yeah, it's fun to be around a couple like you.
Thank you.
Can you tell me how you came to be involved with the Empyrean Temple project at Burning Man?
Yeah, well, it was February-ish of 2022. Is that right? Yeah. And I wanted my Burning Man to be a little different. So in the past, I've worked in service camps, and I had already started looking like, okay, I've done Earth Guardian. Did I want to be a greeter, or do I want to be? I thought about the different camps. I looked online, and I said, service camps. I really wanted to work in the art department. Like, I wanted to do more art. Art really moves me, as you can see. You've been around my house. I have a lot of art, and it's a big part of our storytelling life together. Garth and I, we both really believe in art and do art ourselves. So I wanted to get involved, and I was new to Facebook, and I was looking, and one of the first things that came up in my Facebook, which new to Facebook, it's been around 20 years or whatever, but I wasn't going to do it, but it was perfect timing. It was the first thing that came up, and it was a potluck over the hill, and it was for Temple, and it's like I was wanting to build more community locally in the Burning Man community, because it's not a big community here in the Napa Valley, at least as far as I know. So that's how I found out about it, and it's like, I'm going to sign up for the potluck. I'm going to go see what this is about. Maybe we can be on the build. And I said, "Do you want to come?" And he was like, "Of course I'm going to, come. It'll be convenient for us both to do the same thing." And so that started on April 3rd, and then there's no looking back.
And what did you do at the start?
What did I do at the start? Like,
yeah, well,
first
I feel
day?
Like your role evolved, is my understanding, from what you were planning to do and what you ended up doing for being part of Temple this year. Yeah, is that the right word? What I was planning to do? I really didn't even know. I showed up to build community and bring something to the potluck. I have no idea what's going to happen after that. And that day, there were different conversations, and you listen to people do presentations, and there were some people who were like, "Oh, you need to do this," and I have some natural things that I can do and cook, and I've cooked sort of institutionally. I've cooked for large groups and done a lot of that. And so it's like, well, I could help over there, or I really want to be a part of the build. But I had some limitations physically that would be really difficult for me to build. But it's like, well, I can do something. And obviously my life in operations and admin, it's like, okay, that'd be easy. But I really want to be a part of the build. So that doesn't quite work out because of my physical limitations. But I had epicondylitis in both shoulders and arms, and it's like, wow, that's gonna. So cutting big saws and hammering wasn't gonna be your. It was not gonna work, and it's like I just really wanted to do that, but it's like, well, it all matters, right? It's all art, and I met somebody there whose wife had been involved before, and she didn't want it. She was like adamant. He said, didn't want to do kitchen anymore, and she'd done a few Burning Man kitchens, and I guess it was hard on her, and so he was like, wow, if you have any experience in that, we really could use your help. And
that sounds like, and I said, well, I'll consider it. You know, I don't know where I'm going to fit into all this. It's really early. So I started out on the build right away, realizing like, all of a sudden people are showing up, and oh, here's how I started. Shall I change?
Yeah.
The day of the potluck, we drive in. We're there maybe, I don't know, half an hour early, 20 minutes early, and just this is Memphis. So I drive in and I realized like, oh, look at, there's cars just pulling in and people are kind of in a line and they didn't really know what to do. They're just sort of in their cars waiting because there's a round parking lot. And I jumped out of the car and I said, I'm going to park these guys. Like we can figure this out. So I got everybody, like I was the parking attendant, and I'm all lining them out and moving them around, and they just thought I was assigned to be the parking attendant, and they get out of their car, and I'd give them a big Burning Man hug and said, welcome, and
But this was just self-appointed.
I hadn't even been I was still in the parking lot. I hadn't even gone over to where this potluck event was happening.
You hadn't met Renzo.
Nothing. No, I didn't see anybody. I just realized there was chaos. And nobody knew where to park, and there was big vans coming in and little tiny cars, and it was a round space. So then I laid out all the edges, and then I brought them down lanes. You know, people think about it, and it's like everything works in a pattern. You can fit more cars in, and the big cars had to go over there, the buses had to go over there. And really, it was just like clockwork, and everybody parked nicely. There was space and room for people to get out of cars. They got a big hug, like I was a greeter. It was a Burning Man kind of a thing, and I thought,
just a moment on a random day.
It was a moment on a random day, and I realized, well, nobody's handling this, right? So someone has to help make this right for people, because they're like, what do we do? And there's nobody out. And I greeted everybody. So for the moment, I made myself a greeter. Yeah.
Right.
And then I went in and signed up. And then the next week I started, and I don't know. I ended up within the first 2 weeks realizing, doing a little bit of the build, meeting people, sort of getting to know who was in charge, and there really wasn't really anybody. There were some people that sort of had a role, but it was really just Renzo and different people doing different things. And he needed somebody to go get lunch a couple times, and I said, sure, I'll leave and go do that. And then he started thinking like, wow, I really don't want to pay for lunch. It's just so much nicer when people have a home-cooked meal. And he said, Memphis, somebody told me that you know how to cook. And it's like, well, yeah. So he said, would you mind? So I started cooking for the team. And literally for that 4 months of pre-build, whatever it was, I pretty much cooked, except for the first weekend, I cooked every meal to feed the team on Saturday and Sunday, and sometimes Fridays. Mm-hmm. And I would prep the night before, and I would make sandwiches, and in the wintertime when it was cold, I would sort of estimate the weather, and I'd make big pots of soup and stew, and everybody loved it. People loved it. I'd show up, and at lunchtime, and they were so happy, like someone came to feed them. And one of the best parts about that is weekly I would get emails after, like, thank you for making me feel welcome. Sometimes people would show up on the build side and they just kind of knew what their role was, and there was no like lead necessarily telling people like, oh, you do this today and you do this today. George was super helpful in that when he was there. And so they kind of didn't have like someone really checking them in, and this is, you know, what we do, and this is what our project is today, and this is our focus. And I got a lot of really positive feedback that I helped make them feel welcome, because they'd come in, and eventually I got a sign-up sheet, like who's here, and I started taking roll and thought that would be a good idea, putting out the recycle, and I knew everybody by name. They liked that I knew all their names, and I even knew what their dietary needs and restrictions were, so I made specific things for people. Like Arrow, I always had like the perfect meal for Arrow, you know, because he was vegan and didn't have this or that. And that was really special. I looked forward to like doing Marcy's sandwich. It was different than everybody else's, and Arrow's, and was Arrow going to be there today? And everybody really loved that somebody was taking care of them. Mm-hmm. It was really positive feedback.
That's great.
Yeah.
When I was first introduced to Memphis was when I got an email that said, hey, we have a fundraising crisis.
Yeah.
And it seems like you became a fundraising problem solver. I guess in the two stories you've told me, you're kind of creating order out of chaos.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
What happened with the fundraising, and how did you get involved in that, and how did that all go?
Well, long story longest.
Yeah, you can go as long as you want. Like, because I am interested also in just like how the temple gets funded and how you got involved in that, and then how it all ended up resolving.
Great. All right. Well, we'll try to start and I won't take too many side tricks. But so I was still feeding the crew, and there was somebody else doing volunteer. Like Rachel was doing some of the volunteer, and then there was some issue where she wasn't going to be on site anymore, and by that time I had already been building relationships with the volunteers and taking care of it, so I was kind of de facto volunteer coordinator on the site, making sure people have what they need. People will call me, hey, are we working today? Because a lot of people didn't go online and check the forms, or they don't want to do that. They want to talk to somebody like, hey, are you being out there today? Are we doing it? So while I was doing that, I would also, Renzo, he'd say, Memphis, let's take a walk. So we go on the walk site, and he'd say, I'm not sure about what's going on with funding. I don't really know, where we're going with this. And I know that we have somebody assigned to the social media, and they've been doing that a long time. And we have somebody assigned to crowdfunding, and they've been, they're one of the best supposedly in the world of crowdfunding. But where does that end up, and what do we do with the rest of it? And I said, well, give me a little time and I'll look into it. And because he knew I had some, just from conversations that we had over lunch, he knew I had some significant fundraising experience.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I started paying closer attention to what was happening on the funding side by showing up to the site and asking questions to these people who were in control of the crowdfunding. I'd never crowdfunded before. I didn't really know much about it, but I understand patterns in funding. And you can see by looking at things on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, I started taking interest in the person who was promoting it, and really saying, because I was on Facebook and I was in groups and I was on a lot of sites for Burning Man, and I didn't see any asks going out. So the only thing that was really happening was an ask to the community of people who were on the mailing list all these years that had been collecting for temples, I guess, and they would get an update, and then the people who had already sent money to Kickstarter, they were on a list that would get a newsletter. The person who was assigned to doing the newsletters and tracking all that, Nick Johnson, he is awesome. I ended up working with him the rest of the time all the way to the burn, and really respect him. He was a great person to have on your financial team, but he didn't have control of what was going on in the he's not the one that kicked off the Kickstarter. He was just helping managing the funds and looking at the sheets. And so I started talking to him and saying, hey, who's responsible for this? And he said, well, this person is. And I started asking the person responsible for the crowdfunding, saying, every week I'd ask, like, how are things going? What numbers? Where are we? And she'd say, you can do the food, you can do this. Like, I have the finances are under control. You don't have a question. So when I said to Renzo, like, I'm not getting any feedback, he said, well, I want you to just come to the finance team. So we have a finance team Wednesday night meeting, or an administration team. He goes, I don't really know what we call it, but there's a team meeting on the phone. And I said, I told you I was not going to do any team meetings. So he says, no, just can you come? So I got online, and I was listening to these people who had been on this temple legacy crew for a while, and many years, I guess, and there was no real solid feedback. Like, here's the plan. Here's how we raise money. This is what happens when your budget is this much, and your org supplement for an artist gift is 25%, and your Kickstarter, which you have to pay 10% on, is going to come in. By the time you pay for all the gifts, you're only going to get 80% of that. So that really only adds another 15% of your budget. And I was doing the math, and like to the team, I said, guys, like, where's the other 65-70% of the money going to come from? Or, at that point.
And this is late in the game.
This is late in the game, and I'm like cooking for people, and now doing VC coordinating on the site, volunteer, and learning more about finance. And there wasn't really an answer. So Renzo and I took a walk on the site, and he says, "What do you think?" And I said, "I think we better jump and act now, because this is almost end of May, and the Kickstarter was closing, and it's like, what's your plan?" And he looked at me and he said, "We don't have a plan. What do you do?" And it's like, you raise money, as you go direct. And he said, "Well, can you do that for me?" And I said, "I'll do what I can. I'll do what I can." So I worked with Nick a little bit, and we started to get some emails, and I started to get some traction, and Rachel had set up an email for me, and I just kind of went to town on asking and started reaching out. And by sending out that one letter that he wanted to send out to say, "We are halting construction."
Mm-hmm.
And so it did give some traction to the beginning, and there are people who saw that because we put it on our Temple Crew volunteer page, and that had like 2,000 people. We sent it out in both newsletters, previous donors, and then our volunteer, which is another 2,000 people. So the word quickly got out, like, Temple's halting. And there was a lot of energy around that. Like, we sat around and really thought about it as a team, this new executive team. That's the other thing. It took a long time to find out who were the people that were really getting things done, and not maybe just people who had done it before and thought, well, maybe they're just not going to participate. Maybe they get their ticket. Maybe they just do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They were disappearing in leadership roles that had supported artists, architects, and designers in the past for whatever reason. Maybe a conflict of interest. Maybe they didn't. They had a little bit of power, and so they chose not to maybe participate. Like, I don't know if they wanted to have ill will with the project, but since it wasn't going their way and they didn't get to do what they wanted, Renzo was smart to go to the people around him who he could tell were showing up to the job site all the time, were building trust. He started to understand their character, and he built his sort of executive admin team out of new people. It was all new people. And once we really had a team that really did come to the meetings on the phone and didn't just put it on like, okay, their camera's on, but they're not even answering questions. You don't even know if they're in their room at home.
Mm-hmm.
That we were talking all the time and collaborating weekly and on phones and making decisions as a group. There were about 6 of us, all new, and Renzo's new. Like, he doesn't have years with burners, and he didn't come with a crew or a camp. And I think that was the best part of it, that it really was new people stepping forward who had new energy with no attachments as to what it's supposed to be or how it should be. And because there was nothing in our way, we could say, well, out of being professionals, which he liked people who had a lot of life experience, we'll figure out how to get this done. And so in those meetings, it started to unfold. Like, financially, this is what we need. And we check each other's letters, and the letter was sent out by everybody. It's going to be a halt. And it was kind of painful. It's like, wow, this is like a real stop in the engine. And nobody had ever done that before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was okay, because it was the truth. Like,
But you were out of money.
Well, yeah, you were out of money, but there was no way to fund it unless some magical big donor was going to come through. Like, people said, oh, the org provides big donors that are come through and pay for it all. And it's like, well, I didn't hear that. No, and that's not in I'm reading the contract thinking, well, that's not in the contract. They did their goodwill. But what happens is a designer or an architect comes in, and they're not a business person, or they're not a finance person, or they don't have a team, or they're not connected. Then who's gonna raise the money for them? Like, he's a contractor. Mm-hmm. He's not a fundraiser. And when you sign an art contract, they don't give you a team. And when you sign the art contract, they don't tell you how to do it. Like, oh, by the way, you're going to have to raise your other 65% of the money on your own. But not only that, it was COVID. So this was the 3rd year of trying to kickstart yet another year of fundraising. And the first years went to putting up the 2 buildings pieces, the canopies that are maintained, to pay bills, to do the insurance at the time. It had its own costs. There's all kinds of things which we had answered to later about why that worked out, but there was no plan. So that's the long story of how you get to a point in this thing called Temple, when you don't have DJs and you don't have parties and you're not an all year long camp. with a group of people who support you all year long that have an image out there over and over again, how do you raise money? So the letter came out, it got some attention, people started emailing me like, what's it going to take? I really want to help. And then from there, I started going out into the world. Like I was going to parties in San Francisco, bringing pallets where people could sign, and they were making donations, and really bringing awareness, going to parties, bringing to awareness, doing direct asks. I'd meet people all the time, and I'd say, hey, I'm on Temple Crew, and by the way, we're fundraising. And I joined like 80 groups, and I just started posting all the time, because the person who was responsible for the Kickstarter did not have a presence online. Like I never saw even that our Kickstarter post was out. It's like, do you even do Facebook? Oh yeah, I'm on it all the time. I'm all the time. It's like, well, I wasn't on IG, so I didn't know what was there, but that wasn't really, nothing was happening there either. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go to the market. And Garth helped me do that. Like he'd load the panels on my car, and we'd strap them down, and we'd go into Marin Picnic, or we'd go to San Francisco to a party, and I'd display them out at Public Works, and people would sign and put sweet things on them and make a donation of what they wanted. And all those pieces of panels went to Burning Man, and they were part of what ended up on the inside or outside, wherever it was, that you could see that those signed panels from people in the community who donated and gave. That was a small percentage, but it was really good awareness building.
Yeah.
And that started building relationships where people would say to me, hey, I know somebody who really can help you. Like, let me take you by the hand, and I'm going to walk you over here and introduce you to somebody that really can make a difference. And that started happening, and then the next person and the next person. And it was really wonderful to have it unfold. And then I thought we were done. And then it's, wait, we're not done. Like there's, the insurance, and then there's this permit thing. And then, now we have food. We have to start thinking about crew and feeding crew. And I started managing my side of the budget of new work. I don't know what his old budget was. I just started working with Nick Johnson, who was like, he supported me. When he started seeing the money rolling in, he was like, okay, Memphis is on fire. She needs support. And I'd say, Nick, I can't do it all. I'm still cooking. I'm like getting ready for cooking, actually, but I was doing it all at that point for prep advance of going to Burning Man, because I ended up being a co-leader in organizing kitchen, but it was still me because the person who was helping wasn't yet available and had a lot of stuff going on personally. And I said, dude, I just need you to like spot me on this when there's deposits. Can you tell me my donors are coming in, and so I can get back to them and write thank yous? And he was super helpful for me to get through that. It was a lot. I was up hours every day. I was probably working 12 to 14 hours a day on this for like 6 or 8 weeks straight, between donors, kitchen, meetings, still volunteer coordination, helping answer other questions, read something that Rachel would produce for the newsletter that went out, and getting ready to go. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and that was all volunteer time.
It was all volunteer. It just so happened that I didn't have a contract. I was doing some contract work, and my last one was during that first 2 months I was cooking. So I could cook Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I could sit in on finance meetings at night, or group, whatever they were calling them, for all those people who ended up not being a part of the team in the end, but for good reason, right? Because they weren't collaborative. We found people who could sit in the room, get on these phones, take calls during the day, take calls in the evenings, and really collaborate and trust. And we were constantly inviting new members and assigning people who really fit the role, who liked Renzo, had respect for his project, and was willing to show up for him. Didn't have any baggage or personal or attachment to something else that happened in previous burn, or that kind of stuff. Sometimes you have to walk away from and move forward, and you have to leave people behind who aren't willing to really work with you. And he did the right thing.
Cool. As a fundraiser, what advice do you have, or how did you approach talking to donors, asking for those big checks that you needed to pull the project off? How do you connect with a donor and have a conversation with them that resonates?
That's a good question. One is being willing, right, and comfortable. When you believe in something, like really believe in something, it makes a big difference to reach out and have the confidence to ask about something that you really believe in. That doesn't mean everybody has the finances to support you or has the ability to make your bottom line. But a lot of times if you put it out there, then like what happened with me, they would say, hey, I have this person who really loves Burning Man, who really believes in Temple. Now I'm going to backtrack a little bit. This is the other key. It isn't just any fundraiser. It was the Temple. It wasn't just any art project on Playa. It was the Temple. And that is what people showed up for. They didn't know Renzo. They didn't know anything about who was on the team. They weren't attached, but they were burners who've been to Burning Man before, who understood the importance of this transformational spiritual hub. That's sort of, it's not the only one, but it is the primary one that people look forward to every year to visit. And it was that made it a little bit easy because people cared about the Temple. They didn't know who the team was. They didn't know who the architect was. That didn't really matter to them as much as we need to have the Temple. What do you mean the Temple's not going to be at Burning Man? Like this is the 20th year. We need a Temple. We all look forward to it. It's a place where people go that changes lives and creates transformation, and or at the very least is a place to love or reconnect with themselves at the smallest level by just being influenced at the sheer mass of beauty and people being vulnerable posted all over these walls. Even if you're not feeling grief or you're not feeling love and you want to get married and have a way to celebrate in the Temple, it's the union with all these other people who've given you the opportunity to share in their journey, where they are in their life. And some of it's very personal, you know, and you don't even know who they are as you're reading the sides of those boards that we cut, every single board. Like with Garth, you know, every board is a little meditation was, you know, may you be filled with loving kindness, and do the metta and just keep going that whole time on that pre-build. Because it was holding space. Even though for me, just cooking for people, I might not have been cutting boards or screwing panels in at the infrastructure on Playa, but I was feeding the people who were, and they needed nourishment, right? Provisioning. So for me, it was constant provisioning. I'm getting off track. So the question was, how do you talk to people? It was being direct, being confident, believing in what you're asking about, and making it, and sensitive to maybe that isn't the right project for someone to donate to. And I was sensitive to people who had to say no, and wasn't afraid to say, well, if it's not right for you, or if you can't at this time, do you know somebody who really believes in Temple, who's had a really good experience in Temple, that it might make a difference to them to help us with this Temple this year? And I think that was my message over and over. Like, what does it mean to you? Do you know other people who Temple would be important to, or new people who would like to donate to something that's really meaningful than maybe what they're doing right now in their life with their donations?
Yeah, and it worked.
And it worked.
Yeah. I mean, you had to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars from private donors.
Yeah, in about 8 weeks, almost, a lot of money.
Well, I think the community appreciated it.
Oh yeah, we got to finish.
Yeah.
And one of the best parts was as we reached the end and realized, okay, some of the equipment costs aren't going to be as expensive, but then other parts were. And we were on Playa, like I was still raising money and working from here, talking to people, doing things, coordinating as they got out there, like the first week, because I didn't go till the 19th or 20th with our scheduled day, and then something happened. I guess I didn't go till the 20th. But they'd already been out 9 days, and there were still expenses. There were still things that were happening. There were still costs. And so I'm getting content. I'm still reaching out to donors. I'm making sure the budget and the bottom line, everything's covered. But one of the most important things, 80% of the way in on the budget, was I wanted our people to be fed well and not have to pay dues to the camp. Some of these people, like Garth and I and Rachel and Adam and Arrow, and the list goes on. There were 50. There were more than that. I had 92 volunteers on the volunteer list just for Santa Rosa. That, some only worked a day. Some came and said hi and worked a day and they'd been on a previous one. Some were there every weekend, and Jeremy was there almost every weekend, and Garth on the saws every day, thousands of boards. And these people worked months, and then they worked their summer doing extra things, getting the trucks ready, getting the trucks loaded, cleaning, L&T'ing the build site. There was another small crew that worked for about 5 or 6 weeks over in Davis, and so those are people who had worked more than just at the burn. And then you get out there and they work 21, 28 days, and they needed 3 meals a day. They need this, they need that, and they needed water, and they need someone who was just going to show up and not have to worry. And to have them pay for that, I just was kind of outraged. Like, what do you mean you're going to ask these people, like, oh yeah, the previous people who had done the kitchens before and done camp, it's like, oh yeah, we charge camp dues and we charge food and kitchen dues, and it's like, no, we don't. This is a new crew. It's like, we're not going to do that. I didn't want to, if we didn't get the money. But then a New York donor, specifically a person who was like really wanting to work with us, and they're they go to the burn, and they it's gone wrong. So we can edit that if you want, because I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. So I'm breaking edit right now.
Okay. You mean just like about who the person
right.
is?
Like,
okay.
I was going to say something about you and your generosity, but I didn't know if I was supposed to, right?
Right. Well, you can say whatever. I mean, you can talk about me, but you're just saying that like you had a donor that stepped up
right.
for the kitchen.
I've been very non-specific about names, and
yeah.
including you in the beginning, like reaching out. I wanted to talk about like this relationship I have with you, Justin, but I thought maybe that might be conflict of interest for this, so I didn't want to say.
Oh, well, no, I mean, I'm not going to highlight my own...
Because you always said don't tell anybody, and I was never...
Yeah.
At the end, obviously, Rachel Lorenzo knew, but... All right, so back on track. There was a camp who donated specifically. I had gone out, like, at this point, we had specific line items that weren't fulfilled that I'm like, I'm not going to stop, like, until it's covered. And so feeding the crew was one of them. And I asked donors who had donated a little in the beginning. I had gone back to them because they said, if you get into a bind, check in with me. Just let me know after everybody's given an opportunity to give at the best they're willing to give at that time, then get back to me. And so I did. I went back to some of those people and said, hey, we have line items. We have certain things in lighting. I have a crew I'd love to feed. This is the kitchen budget. I'm responsible for it. You can trust it's true, and we're going to, have it all laid out. And I did that for about the last $80,000, and I was able to feed everybody on a budget with the truck, and all the menus covered, 3 meals a day, snacks, everything, so people wouldn't have to pay camp dues for food. And then I was able to get enough also for camp dues for power and campers and everybody who needed to be compensated. Not the RVs, they still paid their fees and took care of things they needed, but for builders who were just intense. And we bought extra shade. I went and bought, Garth and I had a friend in southern San Jose who I was going online like looking for materials to help him with taking on camp infrastructure. And it's like, we did the math, we drew a camp map, and it's like what they have in the truck and what people had, that's not going to be enough shade. So I hustled to find 2 20 by 40 foot tents, which ended up being a large 40 by 40 foot space to cover all of our campers and provide, because other people are saying, yeah, people figure it out, they don't need it. And it's like, thank God this year was the hottest and the dustiest, they needed it. And so we spent a whole day just making fun, driving to South San Jose for a friend who had all this stuff in their backyard and loaded it up. And there were a few holes and it needed to be fixed. And Jeremy and his gifted canvas sail patching career from being a sailor helped patch them all. And yeah, it's just, you just do what it takes. And there's the rest of the team, they have no idea. Like, I was here fundraising late at night in other time zones, like people across the world, because it was a referral of a referral said, hey, my friend Memphis, and I didn't know most of these people. There were people who I met at parties, and people that mostly knew me, who referred me to other people who said, you really need to have some time with Memphis. I think you're going to really like what she's working with right now and what she's doing. And so does that kind of answer your question?
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like the temple, you could tell from your experience that the temple is meaningful to thousands, hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
How is the temple meaningful to you personally?
How is the temple? Well, the temple as an object at Burning Man is meaningful to me because I believe in spiritual places. I believe in places for transformation, and you don't have to have a building to do it, right? You can do it internally. You can do it with personal change. You can do it in nature. Transformation happens all the time. But our society, I believe humanity tends to, maybe because of tradition and habit, we tend to seek out refuge and buildings in order to have a spiritual change. It's like it creates a container that's a safe place that all of a sudden has a container, regardless of its name, without denomination, but somehow is associated in the container, sort of like in the womb, for a place to be completely vulnerable if you so choose. And if you're available. And under the conditions that a place like Burning Man brings on a physical body, because of just the harsh conditions, sometimes people become extremely vulnerable in ways they never have been before because they're exhausted, they're hungry, they've been out all night for a couple of nights, they've tried new things they never have, but the dust is always there, the dust is always there, and it never goes away. And so I think people become very vulnerable, and to have a container that's not just wandering about, that really is a place that they can actually go and sit quietly and look around and feel the energy of other people who might be sitting quietly. There might be somebody in the corner reading a prayer. There might be somebody who is hanging some beautiful satin hand-painted scroll that's coming down from the ceiling, and you're watching them as they're placing, and people are placing, and there's always more coming in and more coming in to this building where it's a place of refuge, it's a place of understanding. It's sort of if you don't have what, the tradition in the US anyway, are mosques and churches and communities where people go to do worship, and in this case it isn't worship, or to create community. So in this case it's a safe container that seems very spiritually respectful. So somehow the spirit world has been attached to this building called Temple at Burning Man. And who knows who started that and why they said, oh, this is going to be a spiritual home for people at Burning Man. I don't even know if that has a history, but maybe by calling it a temple, it was just by nature that it became that. But it is really a building, it's like it's a sanctuary for love and discernment and transformation and vulnerability. And I wanted to, I was excited this time, that's the temple in general, this time it was the Empyrean temple. So you're at the highest height by Empyrean of, that godly deus, sort of the eternal in Empyrean. That was like, wow, this is a really big building, and it was a beautiful design of architecture. I have to give Renzo a lot of credit for his design, and that's why I stuck with it. It's like I really believed in his ability as a designer architect. I really believe in him and his vocation. He did a great job. It was a beautiful piece, and the lighting crew, unbelievable what they did to even accentuate the skill that he had and put the two together. And one of the best I've seen ever, no question. And it served its purpose. It served its purpose, and I feel that it was really, I feel honored to be a part of, like I said in a video with Rand on the pre-build site earlier, that it was an opportunity to provision for people a place to be vulnerable, to find shelter when they want to open their heart to things that maybe they've never thought about death, maybe they've not thought about their mortality. And all of a sudden you're invited into sharing this mortal life with all these other people that you don't even know. And it's impressionable. Mm-hmm. It's an honor and a privilege to sit in a building where people are openly honoring their grief for a loss or somebody who's harmed them, and forgiveness, and not so much hate, I wouldn't put it as hate, but it's just a place where you get to be exposed to other people's vulnerability. Like, you get to know people at a depth and you don't even know who they are. And yet you're having this conversation with them by finding out somebody who passed away, or someone's wedding dress because they lost their marriage, or maybe a baby gown from the unborn child. And you get to know this about other people that you have no idea who they are, and you'll probably never meet them. But they just shared a piece of their lives on these walls of this place that's going to burn to impermanence. And before that happens, you get a glimpse into someone's deep heart space. And I think that's the most profound of it all. You don't get to do that, as far as I know, any place on earth, to have a personal relationship with somebody you will never ever meet, and you're meeting them at their most vulnerable place.
What was it like for you lighting this temple on fire? Got to participate in that moment.
That moment was truly the highlight of my burn. Yeah, mm-hmm. Because it was a working burn. That moment was an honor and a privilege. And as I approached, all along I'm saying the metta, and really just, may you be filled with loving kindness, may you be at ease and at peace, and just moving through, walking towards it, being really clear of my intention. It's not like, oh, Memphis gets to light the temple, yay. It's, wow, I am going to help start the process for people's impermanence. Like, this is representing all these people out here, but it's not just the people who were there. It's for all the gifts that were filled from the people who didn't get to come, but mm-hmm. people who walked their gifts in and brought them from all over the world. Will you take this for me? Will you take this for me? Many of us do carry gifts, so starting that process of impermanence, it's like this celebration of letting go. What an honor and a privilege. It was a highlight.
Mm. That's great.
Yeah. It's like being a part of helping people process. And I'm a firm believer in process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to do it.
And you're talking about what you were saying on the way up there. Are you saying that for yourself or for others?
Oh, for others. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for myself too. I guess just getting through it. No, but mostly for others, because my intention was, I'm not lighting it just because, yay, I get the privilege of lighting, even though that was a major thing. Mm-hmm. It's like you didn't think to check that off your box in life as life's goal. I would have never imagined. But it really is it was a big deal for me internally. Mm-hmm. Mostly though, because it's like, wow, it's sort of like, it's not completely, but it is a reminder. I've had the blessing and the opportunity in life to be a part of a lot of end-of-life services. And I have interred ashes, and I have led services for people who don't have alternatives to do that. And this was another way to express that. Mm-hmm. It was safe, and it's like, okay, I know what this means. Like, I can help be a part of letting go of all this energy here where other people feel like maybe a celebration of life or these kinds of things really are for the survivors. It's for the people who are left behind. It helps them let go. So if I can be the process and the instigator of something that will help them lead that journey of letting go, I'm all in. Yeah.
Can you tell me about this beautiful necklace that you're wearing?
The pendant. This is the Imperium pendant. Yeah, so another one of my many little tasks and things, when we were on the pre-build site, which, were several months, 4 months, I guess, 4.5 months, when people would come on the weekends, because it was on the winery property, the winery was open for the public. And this particular winery, though they don't go to Burning Man, they have an affinity to art. So there's the owner and his children, and they all love art. And there is a large representation of previous Burning Man art on the property already, in mostly metal art form. And then there are other artists in the community in the Northern California area, one from Idaho and someplace else. So it isn't all Burning Man art there, but there's a lot of big art on the property. And people would come to just walk around and check out the art. So when they saw us building and having this major action going, Renzo would say when guests would come, because I'm a natural greeter, right, as in the first day, he'd say Memphis, and he kind of make me
go entertain those people.
Well, yeah, just like, hey, I always knew what he meant. Like, can you go take care of our guests? And so, of course, I would. And for me, being who I am, it was also an opportunity to educate them, but also an opportunity to ask them for a donation. So it was, here's what we're doing, and by the way, we are a nonprofit, and we are collecting money, and this is what this is about. And I would have some of the best communications about impermanence in life and things that people just wouldn't think about.
Because these people have no knowledge of Burning Man,
right.
Potentially.
Most of them didn't. And we had great donors who also just didn't know. And because I would walk and talk, they were just like, wow, yeah, and they'd write donations. So in that process, we had a lot of people coming up to the build that weren't our daily crew of our 90 people who would come and go. And in that was this young man, Mark Tellis, who was also very known in the Burning Man community, and he's a temple guardian. And he came up one day, and Renzo was chatting with him for a little bit, and all of a sudden, Renzo looked at me and said, Memphis, I need you to handle this. And it's like, okay. And so Mark and I started chatting, and Paul Lathauer was actually the designer. And this wasn't done. They were just photos and some finish. And so Renzo knew about the pendant, and he knew that it was ready to go, but it needed to be funded. The logistics of how that was going to happen. Was there going to be a jewel or not? Was it going to be this? Was it going to be that? How are we going to distribute it? Who's going to handle all that? And when he said, Memphis, will you handle it? It was sort of like he trusted me, whatever it was, fundraising, cooking, co-lead for this, handling that, write that, turn it in for me. I don't care, I don't even need to see it. He knew I would just do the best I could and make it right, from my heart, right? Not from anything else, just from integrity. So I saw it, I saw the design, and I can just tell by the way Renzo was like looking and talking to him that this was something he really had an interest in. And we didn't have a gift yet for the team, and then he said, when you walk and talk with me later, he said, so you met Mark? I said, yeah. And he says, what do you think? And I said, it's beautiful. And he says, well, what do you think about that? And I said, well, it would be a really nice gift for our team. And he says, well, I don't know about that. Like, is usually a gift? And I said, yeah, there's usually a gift. We're in a really big build team, and this would be a really nice thing to do for our people. And he says, well, I don't have the bandwidth for that. You know how to do those things. Will you take care of it? And if you think it's the right thing, then just make it happen. So I did. So I followed up with him on a regular basis about every 2 to 3 weeks to see how the design going. Then we started getting to the ticket allocation numbers, so I would know how many we'd need. And I started raising money, so it was another independent fund. And I went to somebody and said, can you help me fund pendants to provide our team? And it was a positive, and so I was able to collect the monies appropriate to pay for this. And at this point, we're getting ready to go. It's a month ahead of time. Nobody knew about it but myself. Renzo never asked me about it again. As far as he wasn't even going to happen, he didn't know. And so I told Mark, like, let's not tell anybody. If you can meet me, because he was going to bring it to Playa. If you can.
This is the designer of the pendant?
Not the designer, but he was the person who helped make it happen, and he was a part of the production side. Yeah. Paul Lathauer, I hope I don't mess up his name, I think was the designer. And then, of course, influenced by Renzo and Mark is when they saw it originally, like what you want, and having the two-tone and then adding the jewel. And it was an expensive endeavor. but it's beautiful. And the Empyrean was an endeavor, and it deserved something as a gift for these people, not only to feed them and not have to pay camp dues, but also to gift them with something memorable, because it was an impermanent occurrence. So this is something that they could walk away with as a memory of being on this really amazing hand-selected team of people. And so I asked Mark, well, meet me when you get there, which he didn't get there till Tuesday, and we had our celebration once the temple opened, I guess Monday night, and I gathered everybody after the dinner. I had made tangine that night, this beautiful lamb tangine that took hours and hours and hours, and froze it and had it like I wanted it to be for our celebration night as a family. And it was the night when we opened the temple before people walked through. So we had this beautiful Moroccan tangine, which was, it was not Egyptian food, but it was close because it was off the, idea of the Egyptian ethos and our patterns that we had throughout. And I wanted it to all connect. It just was meaningful to me. Nobody else really knew, but so we did. I served the tangine with the team. My kitchen team was amazing. I love them. A lot of the new people, it was so great and very affectionate and loving. And then I gathered everyone, and one by one I told Renzo what we were doing. I gave him his first and hung it on him, and then he actually handed each one out and said thank you to every person, and hugged and handed and shared, and it was a really beautiful night. It's sort of like there's no captured moment of that either. It's kind of funny, some of these really great moments.
Yeah, it was a special moment because it was just the crew in the temple.
Yeah.
And it was only that fleeting.
It's
even more fleeting than the temple itself.
It was even more fleeting because it was just us, and they had no idea, and Renzo didn't know. He didn't have any idea that I had completed it and it was done.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was really sweet. So that was a real fun other high moment for my burn, was to light the temple and to provision these pendants for the team, and having checkpoints along the way and seeing how the work was, and are we going to make the numbers and can we get them all done, and I was really kind of pushy.
But they didn't arrive to fly it till like the day before you put them out?
Like
wow.
Literally, and I'm up there like checking in, like, where are you coming? I haven't seen you yet. I've checked your camp twice, like, do you have them? And getting the tangine defrosted properly, and it's like, yeah, that day meant a lot to me. And so, yeah, it was a lot, right? These was an important component. Lighting the temple after being there since the very beginning and having all these roles and different forms of leadership. I really was full time. Like, if it wasn't doing something he asked directly, or doing something with Rachel, or collaborating with Nick on finances at the end and handling pretty much all the large donor fundraising on my own, except for the organization came through with a donor in the end to really help finalize all the really hard stuff at the very, very end when we were already on Playa. Yeah, I was exhausted. But it didn't even occur to me in the moment to just stop. It's like, we're not done. Can't stop till we're done. Luckily, I wasn't working full time then, right? So I had that 3.5, 4 months, but it was full time. There were times here he would say, I would just fall apart in tears. It's like 2 a.m. and I'm exhausted. It's like, no, I gotta get this done before tomorrow night. I treated it like work. It was full respect of, we are on a project line. I am not gonna fall apart on this. We're gonna get it done. And yeah, we all have our moments, but
yeah.
It's amazing how you show up for first person, it's amazing if I put my mind to something and I have the right people that I care about, and a team I'm working with that we're collaborating like these people were, and together, and I didn't even really know them. I don't know them outside of what we did. How much we can put into it and show up. It was exhausting in the end, and it took me, still, we're just sort of getting ready for like, okay, Running Man's coming up again. What are we gonna do? It was a lot of energy for a project that, for a guy who's a great architect and designer. I don't know much about him, but I cared that his project came to full fruition, and I was going to see it through no matter what.
Yeah. I asked Garth this, were you able to enjoy Burning Man this year?
Is that a loaded question?
Like after when Burning Man opened, were you able to attend the event and enjoy it, or was this you were working until you came home?
Yeah, well, remember we didn't really finish until Monday, right? Sunday night, Monday. So then we had things to do because now the camp is transitioning and the number of people were going off into their other camps and the numbers were coming down and we were still having storms. And so it's not like you're just coming in fresh on Friday and you're great and okay, so we're 3 days into it and some people have been there 20 days already and they're just exhausted. And really, I started helping Garth at that point. The kitchen was pretty self-sufficient. We had a lot of people and people needed breaks. And that was another thing. I built up a big kitchen crew, bigger than they'd ever had. But I have to tell you, even just a month ago, I had been in contact with a lot of the people that were on the crew. Gravity she co-led the kitchen, and she's really good because she had previous experience of setting up the truck and helping do things and had a license to help buy supplies and things that were less. But I did a lot of the pre-stuff and a lot of the pre-cooking, and she helped with some of that also. And then we had other people do things. And but on Playa, we had a pretty good group of people. But I brought on like 10 new people who'd never been to Burning Man before, international. And that's what I love. It's like I'm not really a legacy person. And I'm not attached to even ever doing it or being involved again. But for this time, I wanted to be around people who were fresh, who didn't know it all, who didn't have all the answers. And it's like, let's go get it. And that was one of the things out there is you need a break. Mm-hmm. And still, just last week even, here we are in February now, someone emailed me who's traveling somewhere and they were just thinking and reminiscing. And I remember the day that you showed up and started with kitchen and you looked at 3 of us and you said, you know what? It's time for you to take a break. And you let us have like 2 days off. And they just still remember that. Like, you don't have to work the whole time. You're volunteering. You're a human being. Mm-hmm. You know, you need time to, and I needed the same. So by Tuesday night, oh, I know what happened. I got my little red outfit and I had my red hat on and I was feeling good and my red patent leather boots. And I went to district. So I took the day off. And I went to district and the kitchen was covered. It was light. You know, by the time the event happens, it's light. We don't have that many people in camp. And
right.
And I danced for 6 hours and somebody allowed me to go up on their crane. It was a lift and put me a lift over the top. And I love to dance. I'm a dancer. So that was pretty wild to just let loose. I'd finally arrived at Burning Man. Mm-hmm. You know, it was Tuesday at district was my day. And they didn't have a lot going on, like during the week. I went by and there wasn't much, plus the dust storms. A lot of camps I would ride by were sort of closed down. Nobody was really around. It was such an interesting, weird burn. Like the streets were empty all the time with people, and people were hiding out because the dust storms were so bad. Mm-hmm. And I did go see some art, but not nearly as much as I usually do. I missed that. Like, it's sort of like if you do an event like this for Burning Man and you work this hard, which really isn't for Burning Man, it's for the artist, but it's a Burning Man thing, and they depend on Temple being there. It would be so gracious to give someone like us, the people who work so hard that, you know, for these months and months and months and we're exhausted, to have a ticket for the next year, mm-hmm. so that we could just go to Burning Man and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I would really love it if someone would just hand me a ticket and I could just go for 5 days even and just enjoy it. Like, go see all the art. The way I'd like to do it. I mean, usually I always work, and it's like, I always say, I'm not going to do it. But then I'd get involved, because but yeah, I didn't have much of a burn. So I went to district. Wednesday night we went out and did the all-nighter, watched the sunrise at Temple, which is great. You know, went and listened to music all night long with 3 or 4 crew people. That was a lot of fun. Thursday, met up with some friends in the evening, did stuff during the day, worked in crew during the day. I don't remember. So each day after Tuesday, I had a half a day. But I had to be alert. Like I had a team
that
I was responsible for. and Garth, and like I had to go to hell 4 times. Who wants to go to hell 4 times during Burning Man in a trailer in dust storms?
Yeah.
Nobody ever. And I just kept saying, what are you doing, Memphis? What are you going to hell for? Like, you've done the fundraising, you're feeding people. Why are you in hell right now?
Is there no one else that could take this car and get some gas?
They would, but they just wouldn't show up. There was a moment I remember when there was this funny, I don't know who she was. She's some person now, I guess, trying to establish herself in the Burning Man playa community. And she wanted to interview people who were Burning Man kitchens.
Okay.
And get a recipe and like see them on site and film them on site and do the whole thing. And ever since pre-build, she'd been trying to contact me, and I've heard, you're doing this and you do that and you provide food and you're great and you're cooking and I want to interview you and we want to film you. And so once we got to Playa, I was so busy, doing different things. It wasn't just kitchen, but I was also helping Garth. And one day I was sitting down in a chair. It's like I'm sitting down in a chair in camp, like literally like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting in a chair. It felt very odd to be sitting in the chair in camp, like not zooming around and bouncing off walls or running and crying and chasing water trucks down. And so I remember she finally found me and her team and her crew, and they've got film and they've this, and I'm just sitting down like in that moment, and she caught me, and someone brought her over, like, this is Memphis, and she said, oh, Memphis, this is so-and-so, and I've been trying to find you for 4 or 5 days, and it's like, okay, great, like, okay, sure, let's do the interview. And during that time, someone came and said, hey, do you have the keys to this? We need to go get ice. Oh my gosh, do you know that the generator on the side is not working? And then someone came forward and said, hey, the water's still not filled. Do you know what we're supposed to do? And there, that so-and-so's camp isn't working, and I guess, one of the tent flaps is up and the backboard, and all this happened, like, I was the first time I sat down, and and her assistant says, she's too busy, we gotta go.
And that's kind of how this event was.
Yeah, and it was only because I think, one, I'm approachable. Mm-hmm. It's the right person to ask. And sure, I might not do it myself, but I'll help find out how to get it done.
Right.
And with loving kindness, like, yeah. And it always wasn't. There was a couple times I get frustrated with people, but in our kitchen we had some people that were young and new, and there was some relationship drama going in the beginning, and so they would come to me, Mama Memphis. Mm-hmm. It was sort of for the new and young people, like, who were overwhelmed with the dust and overwhelmed with Burning Man, but always wanting to be there at the same time, checking in. So I was also kind of emotionally connected to people, trying to keep them going secretly as I'm trying to keep myself going. And mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I loved it. At the same time, I'm still like, wow, all this reminds me of how exhausted I was to mm-hmm. come home and then clean. Because we brought so much stuff that we donated of our own equipment for camp that, I cleaned in this backyard for like 3 weeks. All that shade structure and all the extra, we put up a lot of our shade structure and a lot of our, we didn't have a dome, but we had other things that we put up that I had to clean it all before we could store it back in our storage. And yeah. That's what you do.
Yeah, that's what you do.
That's what you do. So it wasn't the burn I necessarily expected or wanted, but it was the burn I had. Mm-hmm. And that literally is how you have to live. You either live with it and move forward with it. But luckily, I had some of these really premier moments in life.
Yeah, you created community.
Which was my whole goal when Garth said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm on Facebook right now. And it was late at night and it was time for bed. And I said, I'm thinking about going to this, potluck for the Imperial Temple because I want to create community and be in community and park cars and greet people as they come in the door. I had no idea who they were, but from that moment on, they all knew who Memphis was.
Yeah. And it just cascaded in a line.
Yeah, which is very sweet, right?
Yeah.
And it's not about me, it's about they knew who they had someone to go to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like meeting people. Everybody in the build site knew me, so that was great. What are we doing, email? What are you doing? How are we doing this? Are we doing this weekend? Are we not? Are we feeding? Are you not feeding? And then And there are lots of personal, you get to know people, and my email box is full all the time from people. Even Renzo and Rachel probably didn't know, but I was constantly in communication with people about what we're doing and what's happening with the build. And
it's the dynamic of, it's nice to be part of something and to be responsible, but sometimes it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And relentless.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't have been a lead for like 4 primary positions.
That's not how you would have chosen.
That's not how I would have chosen or ever do it again. And if there was a playbook, then I would write these things down for the next person and say it's probably not a good idea. But I don't think, one, that's really welcomed in the community. You just sort of send off to the next person what you've done. But it really depends on the leader. Like, is there a leader? Is there a team? Are you somebody? Temple is original that way, where every year it could be a new playbook. It could be a new gig. And when you have, there's some tension, right? Because there's some legacy people that have their way, but there's a lot of people who build. And so, some of the legacy, like Tree J and that truck, and Simon, super valuable. Those are people you really want on your team. They're gifted, if that's the connection to the nonprofit that's associated to it, that creates tension. That's not normal. Most build projects in Burning Man don't have that. So by having that attached to it creates a tension. That's an abnormal attention. Most art projects in Burning Man don't have a nonprofit attached to it, unless they're big sound camps, because they do it year in, year out. And the fact that it's a new designer architect, or can be, it hasn't always been, but can be, then you don't know if that person is self-funded or not. Some are, and when they're self-funded, they don't need extra money, right? So they don't need a fundraiser.
Right.
They just pay for it themselves. Sometimes it's an architect and designer that only know that, and they're not a builder. But luckily, Renzo is a builder. He really knew what he was doing, right? He had that in his back pocket. But does he lead camps? Does he lead a community? Has he ever been lead of a board of directors? Does he, it doesn't have that experience, like how to manage a crew. We didn't really have one of those people. We all kind of did our own things because we were pretty capable individuals in our own right. But we're at least capable to come together as a team. And executive team, I guess, is the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, the other day when I was talking to Renzo, he said something like, it's chaos, but somehow the chaos works at Burning Man. Like, people somebody shows up and figures it out.
Somebody
the community
shows up and
figures it out together.
Yeah. And the org did a great job. Ass and Heat both really came forward. I think they did a great job. I think they really showed up, and in the July and August timeframe, there were a lot more meetings with them where they got to the point where they were willing to allocate meeting time and met every week. I didn't meet on those meetings, but Garth was, and I was here, and so I knew what was going on in the meetings and what the progress was happening as far as what they were willing to give in support. They did a great job. They're smart people. They know what they're doing. And it may not be at the time what everybody wanted all the time, but I think they came through with what would be a normal agreement for them for any art project, and probably well beyond that, because on Playa, they really brought it, right? I mean, they really showed up in the first part of the build for sure. There's that day where there's a picture where there's just like all of Heat. They're just driving all their trucks out there, and there's on cranes are coming out and lifts, or everything's coming out, and that was a cool moment. So yeah, there was this support from them, and they came through with a recommended donor who was their contact, not mine. In the end, it really helped close everything up for us, and I didn't have to worry. When I knew that was happening by like Tuesday, which is like the first day I went out and danced and had like my Memphis moment on Playa, all of a sudden I could relax. It's like, oh wow, it's really done. Yeah. But it really took me until December before I was really like, okay, I think I'm over it.
It was a big year.
Yeah, it's a
Oh my
big year.
gosh.
I was truly exhausted. We both were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I loved it. I'm really glad I did it. I'm grateful that I got to be a part of the pendants and handing them out, and I also am grateful that I still get communication from people who ate lunches and felt great about it and felt welcomed and remember me as somebody who fed them and cared about them and made them feel welcome when they got to the site. Like, I always greet everybody. And that's me, right? That's really who I am. So I did the right thing. I was in the right place. And handling the admin and doing all that stuff behind, I do that in work, so was ideal.
Yeah.
I didn't get to build. I built a couple of horses. Yeah, it was just like, I need a couple horses, and so he showed me how to build. I did like 8 horses the first day, and I was so sore. It's like, I can't do this. So that was my build. I actually worked on a couple panels, actually a whole day on panels, so I did do some panel work.
Yeah, so your construction was up there, up in the sky.
Yeah. I wanted to actually work on the build at Playa, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
It's hard jumping in the middle. And I had other things. But I don't feel any less of a team. It's just a lot of people had no idea all the things I was doing to help make it happen, but which is okay.
Yeah.
Sort of that back of the house person, make the magic, put the fairy dust.
Well, on a personal note, I know you lost your mom recently, and this morning you picked up her ashes.
I did.
Never met your mom, but she did an amazing job raising a beautiful soul.
Thank you.
It's an honor to know you.
I appreciate you, Justin. Yeah, it's been great to know you too. This process that we've engaged through since June, and our connection online, and the people that we've shared because of you being also a wonderful donor to Temple, which I really respect. And you were sort of one of my kickoff people that really believed in me as somebody who could go make it happen, and I did. And my mom was a good soul. Yeah, she struggled a lot in the end, and it was something we were able to do together. And it was a compassionate ending that she was not planning originally, but we were luckily had the right time that I could walk this journey with her to the very end, every breath. And she was a wonderful, educated professional in healthcare. She really believed in the patient and patient care, and in healthcare public services. I really reached out to community care and community health, and I respect that a lot. So I learned my work ethic from my mom, and don't give up. Never giving up. You're not done until it's done. And so I really respect her for that. That's probably one of the biggest treats that she gave me. So it's a journey. So yeah, I did pick up her ashes today. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate you. It's been really a joy and a pleasure knowing you too.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Memphis.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming all the way here to the Napa Valley. And
I know, and I got to
my
see
beautiful house.
Memphis and Garth at home and experience this. I've got to come back. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. Come for a little Napa Valley outdoor, quintessential Napa Valley dining experience.
You're going to have to come, when you're driving across the country at some point. There's a little town in Kansas called Oakley that has, the building that we're renovating with the nonprofit we're putting a 3-bedroom apartment upstairs.
Oh, great.
It's Airbnb, so
yeah.
You'll be treated in style.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Hopefully I'll be in remote work mode by then, and I can work and stay. Yeah, I want to come to the bell choir.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much, Justin.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate
this is
you.
Great.
Yeah, I really care about you.
Yeah. Cheers also.
Cheers. Oh, wait, let's do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Napa Valley, that's what we should do. That's what you do in the afternoon.
I gotta have wine with my interviews more often. I like this.
Yeah. Well, you're in the Napa Valley. You kind of have to.
Yeah, we've got, viewers can't see it, but there's vineyards out the back door. So.
Right. We have vineyards and olive trees, and it's beautiful here. Even when it rains and it's winter.
Yeah, it's cool. I was on my walk. I saw the house over here where there's vineyards in their front yard.
Yeah.
It's like
that's unusual.
Like they are making use of every space of property.
What it is, it allows them to make their property a tax write-off.
Okay.
Right. So it's that's not a vineyard that's going to really produce anything worthy, probably.
Yeah, it's like the rows are
it's
like 12 feet
project.
long total.
Yeah, it's a home project, and they write it off as a business.
Yeah, it's a charming neighborhood. Like, there's these houses have charm. I mean, there's just vineyards everywhere and vines crawling up the walls.
Yeah,
It's cool.
it's an old community. Older community, and the homes this side of the town are about 55-year-old homes.
Yeah.
Garth was born in this town.
You've been here for a while.
I've been in this zip code for 30 years.
Yeah, that's great.
And this is my home. But now who knows what's next.
Right.
The next vocation of my life, I'm looking for something that hopefully will guide me into a couple decades of building wealth for myself as I age, and also meaningful work, and learning new things and keeping up. And I'd like to get back to traveling on the road and kind of representing people, shaking hands and networking and getting to know people and helping them connect the world together again.
Yeah. The world's going to have to step up for you because your bar is building a temple.
I know.
Like the most ambitious temple of Burning Man history.
I think it is. Yeah, I don't know them all, but I think it is the most ambitious.
Yeah.
It was definitely the biggest.
I mean, I remember that when they were putting that ring into place, I was like, "Oh God, I hope this works." And those metal brackets, like I was like, "What if they did them wrong? They're handmade."
They're
all of
handmade.
those.
Like, what if someone slit that weld and it didn't cool right, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, those were big. That's one thing I wish I would have taken off the site. There were 4 or 5 extra. I mean, it'd just be nice. Garth and I thought, let's take those pieces.
Oh, really? Like some people have those? They're
I don't know what happened to them. Maybe Renzo has them.
obviously they didn't burn, right? Like
Yeah, no, it was ones that we had. I think that were extra, just left on the site, and they were sitting on a pile. And it's like, I'd like to take those and like build a little fire pit.
yeah,
and put
upcycle it into some.
upcycle it into some piece of art.
Yeah.
But they were heavy, even for me to carry just one of them.
Yeah.
Put in my car. It's like, well, I don't think so.
Yeah, I know. I was stressed out. I didn't have anything to do. I can only imagine Renzo's stress level, because I was like, is that flame? Is it really going to be stable? Just hanging on cables, suspended in the middle of the air.
Right.
And it was so tall.
Yeah. It was.
I don't know.
That's one thing that went through my mind when the temple was burning, and I was all the way front. As I came back to where everybody was sitting, and I sat down next to Renzo, and he looked up at me, and it was sort of like that look of it's really happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of nodded, like, yeah, I really thought for him, like this, even though lighting it was really for the whole community, it's like this is the opportunity of the release of everything that was going on during this 8 days, that people were filling it up, and the hopes and the dreams of the people that are passing on, of the people that they brought gifts for and laid them in. But walking away from it, I really thought about Renzo. I put myself in his shoes for a moment to think what it must be like to spend years designing, and I talked to him enough about it to understand there's a lot of his life's work in architectural skills and environmental architectural sort of the basics of the different categories in environmental architecture that were meaningful to him in his education, that were represented in building the temple, the Empyrean Temple, and the years that he'd spent putting it together, and some of the grief and the romances and the relationships and things falling apart and putting them back together, and then having it extend not just 1 year, and really vesting yourself. And then have this really amazing crew of people that he really put together, a great crew of people. It wasn't random. And, that selection process happened with a team of 6 of us that we went through over and over selecting. It wasn't a random process at all. And he really understood what he wanted out of that. But just sitting and watching him watch it burn, I had a lot of empathy for him in that moment. Like that, it was almost like, I still don't know everything about you, but I know right now this is a painful moment.
Yeah, that came out in his interview.
It was a life's work, really, that all this time, and it's not egotistical, it's just a life's work. It's where your heart is, it's what you put it into, and he happened to bring it to Burning Man.
Yeah.
But things burn there. They don't get to be put in downtown Boulder.
Yeah, it's not the architectural experience of getting to go back and sit and look at
And look at your work again, yeah. Which in a way is kind of sweet to have the canopies at Paradise Ridge, and the people at Paradise Ridge love those. It's an attraction for a lot of people to come and see it, who know nothing about Burning Man, but they hear a little bit of the story, like, oh, this is part of the temple. We should put a plaque up, near this about what temple is like, or what, even if that, what is impermanence, even if that's just the message. But I did feel for him. There was a moment where I was just like, wow, it's burning. Like, we all work so hard. I'm thinking, I know what I feel right now. I can't imagine what you feel.
Yeah, because people come to the temple with their intention to release something, but they didn't spend 3 years building it and just finish last week.
Right.
Like, it's like...
Not even weeks, 5 days or 6 days.
Yeah.
And then it's burning down. Yeah, that was rough. I felt that from him. That was a moment for me. Once I turned around away from lighting it, it's like, in a way I didn't feel guilty about, I'm sorry I lit your architecture on fire. That wasn't what it was. It was just like, yeah, you have to also face this impermanence. I was thinking for him.
In a profound way.
A really profound way that nobody else there, not a single other unique individual could feel it the way he did.
Yeah, because you were on it for 6 months. I was on it for the week I was out there, 2 weeks, right? He was on it for 3 years.
But he designed
setbacks.
Designed it, imagined it, wrote it over and over, had, imagined it for a little while with somebody else and then changed it and new designs and this and that. And that's going to be hard.
Yeah.
It's sort of like having a baby. A lot of work.
Yeah. And then he decided to let it go.
He
that
had
was
no
part
choice.
of the deal. Yeah.
I was part of the contract. You gotta let it go. It's sort of like signing your firstborn off, from one of those fairy tales, Grimm's fairy tales. You have to sign off your firstborn. I think that's what he just did.
Yeah. But we got to be there.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Cool. Well.
Right on.
Great to see you.
Thank you. Anything else you want to ask, Jim?
I don't know, not unless you have another story that was I didn't ask you about.
I don't think I probably, no. I don't think
Hundreds of them, but not...
No, I think maybe I didn't mention enough about the kitchen crew, but that's okay.
Cool.
Selecting them, hand selecting, new people, international people, and they were a good team.
How did that happen? How did you find those international... It was the New Zealand people, or...
Most of them from Guatemala, but they're almost all American. Right. They're all Americans that are living down in Guatemala, and then 2 or 3 came from Germany, and where else? Where's Hedvig? Was from... I'm not sure. Sorry, Hedvig. I forgot where you're from. Was Finland, maybe? Not sure. And they... was one contact of the other to the next and to the next, and they had been on a festival circuit together, mostly at Oregon Festival, and none of them had been to Burning Man before. Well, I guess one had been a couple times. So they sort of knew each other. None of them were chefs in their own right, working chefs or doing side catering or side hustles like I was doing, but they definitely had experience in cooking and were competent in that. And it was actually Arrow introduced me to a friend of his that worked with 2 of this 8 group at the Oregon Festival. And so I said, okay, well, I'm looking for some new enthusiastic people. Why don't you hook me up and I'll interview them. So I met her. She referred me to these guys because she didn't cook, and so that's how it started. And it was Matthew. And then Matthew introduced me to his friend, and then another one of his friends shows up, and then they said, oh, we have this other friend who cooks and goes to festivals and does stuff, and they're really dependable. And it's like, well, I'm looking for dependable. I'll teach them what they need to do.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, and pretty soon we're texting, and we've got group calls going on Zoom when their phones worked, and they'd all sit around in Guatemala and hey, Memphis, and we talk, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
Getting to know them. And
well, like I said, I appreciated it. The food was fantastic. The snack breaks.
Yeah.
didn't know that I love pickles. Like when it
On
was so
Playa.
hot, like
Pickles on
3 in the
Playa.
afternoon, and they bring out cold pickles.
Say brands of
I was
pickles.
like, I love pickles, and I had no idea.
Yeah. And then Gravity, because we were co-leading, she had a traditional group of 4 or 5 people that she liked working with, so that became her core group for the time that she was out there.
Mm-hmm.
She was just going to go from the beginning and work like the first 11 days, then she was going to leave and just come back like the last 5 days of event and sort of do her own thing. That changed. So, but there was a small group of people who really worked hard, like the first 5 or 6 days, who helped a little bit in some of the prep kitchen stuff, but mostly they were just out on playa. And then this other group of people really came on, and so yeah, having the complement that we did was really appropriate to make sure that people had shifts.
Yeah.
And treat people with human, like you need to have a shift, you need to have, a break.
Yeah.
And I tried to really bring that, which was nice, and people appreciated that. I got a lot of thank yous in the end for like, oh yeah, recognizing that we were exhausted.
Yeah, everybody was. It really was. I mean, the dust storms were...
It was unprecedented, and working into those conditions when you're not accustomed to it and you don't really have a plan, especially for the people who are camping
and the
don't have the
tents.
relief.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It was rough. And to just say, oh, they'll find enough shade, oh, they'll just do that, or no, we can do it with just 6 people for 28 days. I don't believe in that. That's why I think legacy has had it's not the right term to attach to a moving target.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you try to hitch your wagon to a moving target, which temple is, it's moving, it's changing all the time. It's kind of the beauty of it. Then it creates the tension.
Yeah.
So I think it's better to, there's a lot of people who can do a lot of things out there. It's like to let it be new every year. The tool truck is an asset, but they pay for that. That's a contract.
Right.
It's not free. And so that's part of our budget, was to budget the tool truck. And then of course all the people who are familiar, like with Tree as a construction lead, he's great. He's smart. Simon, nobody better for L&T. And as a core group, that tool truck and the 2 of them, that maybe is a legacy, I don't know, but they definitely know what they're doing. But as far as the tool truck is concerned, yeah, it's part of the budget, you pay for that. And then any other group of contractors or people, as known throughout, could build out there. It's just, who do you want on your team?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about the symbolic, like, awesomeness of building a new temple every year is it is different than, it's not dogmatic, I guess.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're building a temple for the people that are here this year.
Right.
For the
And
people that
it
are
gets
here
a
now.
little tension about, well, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. And it's like, well, there's no we. We're all new.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, is what it should feel like, even for people who've done it before. The approach is new. When they start attaching the word legacy, I'm like, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, this temple isn't legacy. This is a new temple. It's never been here before. It's unique.
Right.
And
People are
therefore-
new. The temple is new.
So we should
The
approach it
experience is
that
new.
way. Yeah, even if you've got, 30% of your people that have built before, and that's okay, welcome them back, but don't expect like a privilege
Mm-hmm.
that's better than someone else or more. Like I said, there's only a couple, Trujay in particular, who, he's a good builder. And it's not just being a good builder in life, it's can you handle building on playa?
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. There's a lot of good builders in the world, but can you handle it on playa?
Yeah. And that's what I think you're probably thinking the same thing. I'm like, I don't know if I want to handle it again. Like,
No,
once
I did.
I sort of do. I saw the design of next year's temple and I was like, maybe I should go help build that. That looks beautiful.
Yeah.
But the memory of that dust storm the night that the flame fell over.
Oh, I know.
Oh my God, I had all the windows open in my trailer because I'm an idiot. It was such a gorgeous night.
It was a gorgeous night, though. It started as a starlit, beautiful night.
God was like, I have something for you people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make you earn this temple.
Oh yeah, several times.
Yeah.
It was a rough one, but yeah, no, I still would like to go and work on an art project this year. I just picked the biggest and the badass one last year.
Right.
Just like, I don't need to do that again.
Yeah, something you can make and enjoy making it and then go enjoy.
Yeah, I really want to just go enjoy Burning Man this year. I've worked for years at Burning Man. I just want to go. I just want to go. But you don't really have that privilege unless you work for a ticket. You don't really get one, as far as I know. And I'm happy to do something ahead of time between now and then. Like if I find a project that appeals to me and that I feel moved by in my heart, and that it's like, oh, I really like that, or I want to support somebody. I haven't really looked yet. I haven't even looked. I've been sort of avoiding it. That I would put some of my time and energy into it.
Yeah.
But when I get there, I want to have it burn this year.
Yeah. That sounds nice.
Yeah.
Well, if I go out there, let's burn together.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. We gotta find a project and find tickets. I'm on all these, committees and keeping track of all these emails, and there's always asks. Even I've already had referrals already, like, hey, can you give us a down low on fundraising? Can you give me this? Can you give us kitchen input? So I'm already getting like stuff, not from Temple, but other projects.
Yeah. Well, you have knowledge.
Yeah. I have a little experience out there, and my knowledge from previous. It isn't really what's out there.
Yeah.
So
it's
we'll
a lot
see.
about heart, though, right? Like you just put your heart into it.
Yeah,
That's
what I mean. I want to find something that is really meaningful to me. All the art is good, and all the people are good. It's just I want it to really work for me, resonate, and not just jump in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was only 40 minutes away. It was over the hill. It's like, hey, let's go to this potluck. Oh my God.
That was a fateful decision, going to that potluck. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Boy, yeah.
I wouldn't be sitting here if you hadn't gone to that potluck.
That's right. And I said to him that night, I want to be involved in an art project. I was really adamant. And he was like, okay, Memphis will do what Memphis wants to do.
Oh, that's cool.
But he really showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say, can you help me do this? And would you mind helping me just today with this? I was like, okay, Memphis. Because he's done 16 burns. Like, this is a man who's been there, done that, had camps, built camps, organized other people's camps.
Yeah.
Yes, Memphis, I'll help you one more time. He's such a saint.
Yeah, you've got a good catch there.
Yeah,
so
good.
Cool. I've got to
Okay.
sign off.
Oh, I thought we were signed off. There you have it. How'd I do?
That was great. Oh, that was great.